for today, what I'll be focusing on is more on the underlying technicalities of natural language processing. Specifically, what is it? How can it be applied specific for artificial intelligence as a subfield, in fact, of AI? And with the case of us as an organization, Asia Open RAN Academy, and also for you guys who are um, associated or affiliated with the telecommunications industry, we're now going to also answer the question, how can natural language processing also be applied to our specific field? Because you might be also thinking about it, you know. Okay, we have telecommunications, we also have, say, the fields of network, the fields of data transmission, and heck, there's also the field of cybersecurity, the one that was mentioned also a while ago. So, how can now be how can NLP in general can be applied to the case or to the use case of telecommunications? I'm sure some of you have already also seen some associations on these two fields, but I'll also elaborate on these further, no? But before we can go into that, no, I'll first discuss to you or give you an introduction on what is natural language processing as a field, no, and how does it also play out the underlying intricacies of NLP in general? Definitely, there would also be topics here that would focus on um, GPT. Okay, so that was also mentioned a while ago, as well as the concept of large language models or language models in general, no? And the two most important branches of natural language processing, which is NLU, natural language understanding, and NLG, natural language generation. So, this course is in fact, or the one that I'm going to give you is more of like a prelude on the course that is also being offered at Asia Open RAN Academy. And I just took out some snippets here, some basic concepts, at least for us to have a general understanding on how NLP works. Okay, so I'll first define to you what is NLP within the perspective of artificial intelligence. Because as a science, or rather as a study, no, NLP can in fact already be looked on and studied on, even without artificial intelligence. You can even say that AI is supporting NLP as a practice or as a field of study. Apart from that, we're also going to discuss the different use cases of NLP and differentiate the two phases or the two main components of NLP, which is natural language generation and natural language understanding. We'll also briefly discuss the overall process on how NLP works. So if you're going to think about it, one popular example of NLP is in fact the one that you're already using right now, no? The utilization of chatbots and prompts, no? And it's not just or similar to all other sciences, it goes through certain steps or processes before it can even produce a result. So just by even just typing a simple word prompt, it can already go through different steps on how a simple phrase is understood by the AI model that is actually responsible for processing all of the different texts that is being sent out by the end user, you guys, no? We're going to be discussing it here. We'll also discuss what is a generative pre-trained transformer or a GPT. Now, this gained popularity during the early 2020s, now especially during the pandemic, wherein one company, I think you've already heard also, OpenAI, um, first made their product ChatGPT more popular, no? Specifically through the generative AI use case. So remember what Miss Irene also mentioned a while ago, no? Finally, I'll also enumerate here some challenges and uh, problems that is currently being faced by NLP because like all other sciences, no, NLP as with AI, there are also some implications and limitations, and dare I say also threats that this field of study can also impose, not just in one specific sector, but in society as a whole. So it's not that magic pill or magic bullet that is able to solve everything. And finally, I'll go back to my previous question a while ago, briefly describe the applications of NLP to telecommunications and, of course, to our study, Open RAN. So where can we now finally apply um, natural language processing to telecommunications? So before we can even go there, what is NLP first? No? There are a lot of definitions on what this field of study is, but essentially, within the context of artificial intelligence, this deals with enabling computers to understand, manipulate, and even generate human language. Okay? It utilizes technologies that are, in fact, intertwined with another field, specifically linguistics. So if you are interested on the intricacies of the human language in general, no, and you want to combine it with the concepts of, or with your understanding of computer sciences, perhaps NLP is a field that you also want to pursue or might be interested in pursuing. No? Now, going back within the context of AI, NLP utilizes advanced technologies, including computational linguistics, machine learning, and deep learning models, in order to process human language in its various forms. No? Now, similarly, also to linguistics, you have different modalities on how language is being delivered and being processed by human beings, right? So there are what you would call active and passive skills that we have to learn. No? And forgive me already right now because I would also be introducing to you here some concepts of linguistics. No? So NLP, just because it is a field in AI, it doesn't mean that everything is also related to technicalities. And in fact, no, we can say that it considers an overlap between computer science and linguistics. This is where NLP merges together with those that are related to the sciences with a bit of the arts, no, specifically the linguistic side. Now, why do we even want to pursue this? No? The main goal of NLP is, again, to grasp the meaning of individual words and to give overall comprehension on how these words are being used, not just in a specific sentence, but within the overall context of human emotions, human intentions, no, and human understanding. No? Just because you say a specific sentence doesn't mean that it is truly meant literally, right? And whenever I say, example, I gave out a sentence, I hate X city. So the first impression that you always come into mind is that why is this person hating this specific city, right? So you tend to also ask some questions here. So this is already where the concept of context would be coming into play. Okay, and this is also a field of NLP that is also being tackled on. Now, like all other subfields of AI, no, NLP can be considered as a branch of artificial intelligence. Now, this is not to say that it is a sole branch, no? And as I have mentioned a while ago, that NLP has already been there even before the rise of, or rather the increasingly gained popularity of AI. No? Just for example, no, even before ChatGPT became popular, no, if you are already using translate translation tools, from example, Google Translate, or perhaps you might have already tried to use your voice assistants. So whatever mobile phone that you have, be it iOS or Android, no, those two platforms already have their voice assistants. Like in the case of Apple, if you just say, "Hey Siri," and then immediately the prompt would already appear. That is in fact already an application of NLP. And you notice it has already been there since ChatGPT came into the picture, right? This is because NLP um, is already being used even before computational programming, or specifically traditional AI, has gained popularity. It's already been there, no? But that's not to say that we're already completely dismissing it. And NLP can also now be considered as a sub-branch of AI, specifically anything that is related to text manipulation, text generation, classification can in fact be considered as NLP. Now, this diagram that I'm showing to you now, no, is just an example of the several perspectives on how NLP can be seen as a relationship to AI. Heck, some of these ones can in fact also intertwine with other subfields of AI, such as speech recognition and even computer vision, right? I mean, there are already tools nowadays that say would ask or is, for example, interfaced with the camera, and there is a model running underneath the system that you are working on, and you tell that system, no, what do you see? So it's a simple prompt, but the model is already able to understand that simple question of what do you see, and from there gain understanding on what it should be able to do next. Of course, if it receives that prompt, no, the first thing that it would do is, of course, to prompt the camera to activate. So that's already an interrelationship between NLP and computer vision, no? Now, much like all other subfields of AI, NLP often overlaps with one specific field, which is machine learning. Okay, but apart from that, it can also intermingle with speech recognition and even like what I've mentioned, computer vision. In most cases, however, no, anything that would involve human linguistics in general can be overlapped with NLP. This means it can include going back or going to the linguistic side of NLP, no? The active and passive skills of human communication. No? So you have there, for your active skills, you have your speaking and writing. Your passive skills are reading and listening, right? And you can already also see how these four basic skills can in fact be interrelated to NLP. Okay, so what are some classic or some modern and even popular examples of NLP use cases? I'm able to cite here three categories. No, so first off, communication and interaction. This is where an exchange between an end user and a model would come into play. So this is where your virtual assistants, chatbots, and machine translation applications would be coming in. There's also content creation and automation. No? This is where the field of generative AI can come into play with NLP. So there is also the cases of predictive text filtering, content generation, no? Among others. And finally, no, we also have information retrieval and analysis. So notice also the um, use cases that is being shown here, no? Search engines and in fact text summarization can also be considered as a use case of NLP. So recall my previous statements a while ago that even before ChatGPT was there, NLP is already there, no, working, doing its thing, no. You can even say that just by using the simple Google search is already also NLP at play, no, because search engines are also considered there. Okay, then apart from that, you also have sentiment analysis. Now, all of these nine I'll also be discussing briefly. So, next off, what are some common tasks that NLP entails or enables us human beings are able to perform? No, so we have three basic ones. First off, we have understanding. So NLP enables computers with the ability to comprehend the meaning of human language, and this includes more of spoken and written text. No, it also allows computers to modify and work with human language with various ways. So this is where manipulation would be coming in. And finally, we have generation. This empowers computers to create human-like text or even use text to create other forms of media or context. So, um, just by simple interactions with chatbots, no, this is also an example of an NLP task, specifically generation. So imagine, no, um, similar to what I would say um, synonymous, no, to what you would normally see in the Bible, for instance, wherein you would just speak out words, God would speak out the words, and immediately it would come into existence. No, it's somewhat similar to that, no? Wherein you just type out words, and immediately the model is able to generate something from you out of thin air. No, not well. There are some arguments there, but you hope I hope you get what I mean here. No? So you'll notice, no, there is a bit, sorry, my audio is clear naman na.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All clear po.
Okay, thank you, no. Okay, so um recall, no. So you'll notice now that also seen in your pretest, no. Let's continue on with the basic the basic factors or parts that you have to consider in NLP in general, no. So I've mentioned a while ago that we have three tasks that NLP is able to fulfill or enable machines to do. No? You have understanding, manipulation, and generation. Now, for NLU first, or understanding. So this involves three main factors, or I would say, three tasks or subtasks. No? First off is sentiment analysis. Now, this is also, I would say, the most commonly used use case for natural language understanding. What does it involve? No? It involves identifying the overall emotional tone of a message or a statement and give it a label or a category. So normally this category can fall on a spectrum or a scale, no? And it can either be a positive, negative, or neutral tone, no? And you'll also notice that in terms of its um, usability, no? Um, it's more of like the main intention is trying to be derived on from the statement, no? Or how good or how bad a given statement is, no? So, for example, of a use case in sentiment analysis is, say, a statement is given, or a sentence, or a phrase, no, for this is fantastic, what an absolute bomb, no? So the first thing that comes into mind when you hear this is, of course, it is generally positive. Now, the goal of NLP is to give it, or to quantify it, give it a certain value based on a sentiment score. So, in terms of its use case and its application, no, sentiment analysis is normally used in order to gain understanding on, say, you are trying to give out reviews to a certain product or to a certain service, and say a company or an organization wants to gain insights on how effective or useful a given product or service is, then they can use sentiment analysis based on the reviews that customers have given and understand or even give a objective quantity, no, on what are their overall experience on that certain product, no. So in other words, you're trying to give a certain value or a certain number, no, based on only phrases or sentences. Okay, another one is called named entity recognition. So this involves recognizing and classifying named entities within text. Now, when we say named entities, normally this concerns in linguistics, for example, your proper nouns. No, so you are giving the machine the capability in order to identify. Suppose I have a given sentence here. Tesla last Monday announced it will revamp its top-selling Model Y electric car. From that given sentence, give the model or the machine the capability to understand that some words, for example, Tesla last Monday and Model Y, are labeled and given a certain category. No? So, example, if the word or key phrase Tesla comes into the sentence or appears in the sentence, immediately the machine is able to understand that, okay, this refers to an organization. Last Monday can refer to a date, and Model Y electric car can be a product. Now, this is also being used most commonly nowadays. If specifically, no, whenever you are using Google as your search engine, no, you'll notice that just by typing out the key phrases in the search bar, and Google is able to produce the results based on that specific key phrase or those key phrases. Um, NER is already at play. No? And finally, machine translation. So this appears more on the context of language translation, wherein the model is able to convert text from one language to another language while still preserving its meaning. This is not to say that something can immediately be transcribed or translated literally. So for example, I have a language here. So this is in Japanese, no hajime mashite jon desu. You are giving the model the capability to not just transcribe or to translate the individual meanings of each character, but overall have it understand, no, or to give it a similar translation, no, in a different language. Actually, no, I know a bit of Japanese here. The phrase here, hajime mashite, John des, if you're just going to translate this one literally, it just means hajime mashite, nice to meet you. Okay? John des actually just means nice to meet you, John. If I'm going to translate that Japanese phrase literally. But notice that the output of the machine would be nice to meet you, I'm John. So additional words and contexts are added in order to enrich the original language. Okay, now apart from understanding, we also have manipulation. So I also cited here some three tasks. No, first off, text summarization. Now, with the onset of AI gaining popularity nowadays, of course, there are also some AI tools that are have also spurred or have also appeared out of the whim, no? Apart from just ChatGPT, or if you are into Google Gemini, no, there are also some academic tools wherein you can use AI in order to summarize the text that you give it. No, so I think some examples here would be Quillbot, and arguably also ChatGPT and Gemini also has these capabilities. But the main point here is that this task involves condensing large pieces of text into shorter summaries while still retaining key information. For manipulation to be done, a basic understanding of the original text also needs to be considered. No? So manipulation here is not a vacuum or not a specific task that stands on its own. No? It in fact also considers understanding and generation. No? Next one. Question answering, extracting answers to questions posed in the natural language from a given dataset. So it gives the machine the capability to essentially behave or to have that impression that you are conversing with a human being, no? So normally in the form of a Q&A. So for example here, say you give out a chatbot a question, who discovered gravity? It's a simple question, right? But in the underlying context of it, no, a lot of processes are already happening here. The first thing that a machine model would do is to consult an overall dictionary that it has or a database. Now, in NLP, this is considered as the corpus. From there, derive the answers that is able to find closest in relation to the original question, and from there, produce an answer. Okay. This is also where a bit of caveat needs to also be considered because um, you'll notice that in Q&A, no, the important component that needs to be updated and validated most of the time is the corpus or the dictionary that the model is going to refer to. It doesn't just, or like all other fields of AI, no, NLP does not create something just out of nowhere. No? In the science of it all, it still needs the basis of back data in order to generate something. I remember that when I also had this previous session also on the fundamentals of artificial intelligence. No, I cited an example there on, if you're watching anime, if you are familiar with Full Metal Alchemist, no, um, there is a principle in alchemy wherein it's called the law of equal exchange, wherein for you to produce something, you have to give something back in return. And you can also think of that same concept applied in natural language processing, specifically, well, not just in NLP, but in all aspects of AI, no? Especially in machine learning. Because whatever data that you give into your model, that's only the basis a model is able to produce or to give out a result. Q&A is no exemption. No? If, say, for instance, I type there the question, who discovered gravity? But the corpus that I had placed there, and if it sees that this question, the answer is, for example, Alessandro Volta, for instance, then it's already wrong, right? But then again, you cannot blame the model here because it just based its answer on the corpus data that you have given it to or given it with. No? And lastly, paraphrasing or restating the meaning of a sentence or passage using different words. This is also where the feature or the capability of tone would come into play, right? So say for instance, a machine is able to or it receives a statement like, who y'all messing around right now, my homies? Apologies of my accent. But this is a bit of a Southern American statement, no? And you ask ChatGPT to translate this, or not just ChatGPT, whatever chatbot that you have here, and translate it or to paraphrase it on the standard English, no? It just means that what are you doing with your friends today? So imagine the capability also of an NLP model. No? It can able to summarize, do Q&A, and even do some paraphrasing. Now, apart from that, no, we also have, more importantly, or arguably the most prominent feature of NLP, it is generation. So, first task or the first capability is your chatbots. So this is simulating conversation with humans through voice or text interactions. It's amazing how far we have already gotten, no, ever since the first Google search engine or the first search engine in general was first developed, no, and made available to the common public. So imagine back then when you're trying to look for certain pieces of knowledge, you still have to type in your search bar, and you just have to make sure also that the spelling is correct, no? um, before the machine or the application is able to produce a result. Right now, we already have chatbots wherein you can even go as far as, if you're really that lazy, no, just enable your mic and then just have a conversation with your chatbot. Now, of course, you also have to consider here the accent and the tone, but the capability or the feature is already there compared to the previous iterations of um, text understanding or natural language understanding. No? Next, machine writing. Now, this is a bit of a niche use case wherein it automatically generates creative text formats like poems, code, scripts, or even musical pieces. So this means that, for example, you can use chatbots or any application that has generative AI, um, to already start making something just by typing it out. No? This is not just limited to images. No? In fact, no, if you are aware with Microsoft's product Copilot, no, all you have to do there is it's sort of like ChatGPT. For those who are not yet aware, no, it's sort of like ChatGPT, but it's intended more on programmers and developers, wherein if you don't know how to complete a certain program statement, you can just ask Copilot to complete the entire statement for you. So that's one example. Or in ChatGPT, you just type a prompt there to write a certain piece of code in a certain language, which would produce a specific result. It's able to do that, no, on its own. Okay. And finally, although this one is a bit I want to say it's still in the process of refinement. No, the last use case is text to speech synthesis, wherein this is now where your uh, prompts would come into play. No, wherein it is able to convert written text into spoken language. No, and this is where your virtual assistants would also be coming in, such as Siri, Alexa, um, Google, hey Google, for instance, well, nowadays it's already Gemini also, but the process of transcribing voice into written text, no, falls under this specific task. Okay? Now, I kept touting a while ago that natural language processing, NLP, consists of two general parts, no? And it's because it is, no? It consists of first understanding the overall human language. This is where NLU would be coming in. And finally, based on what was understood, create something out of it. So this is where NLG would be coming in. So arguably, you can even say that NLP is a combination of natural language understanding and natural language generation. So what are the definitions of these two? No, first off, natural language understanding. This is a subset of NLP which uses syntactic and semantic analysis of text and speech to determine the meaning and context of a sentence. So if you're if we're going to step back a bit, no, notice that in the definition of NLU, I didn't say here um, machine learning in the first part, no. So even though the second definition of focuses on machine reading comprehension or how the machine is able to understand and interpret human language, no, this is already within the context of machine learning. But if you're going to just take the overall definition of NLU, this is actually more of like a process, no? And you're just using AI to streamline or even automate the process. Now, how does NLU even work? So, um, a bit of a step back on science, and we'll focus more on linguistics. Okay. For also our sim to just overall simplify also the discussion here. Now I'll be using English as the base as my reference language. No? Now, English on itself is a behemoth of a language, right? Some say it's sort of like a Frankenstein of Anglo-Saxon languages because it consists of words not just from um, native English, quote unquote, the one that came from Proto-German. It has its roots from Proto-Germanic languages. It also has terminologies borrowed from other languages, no? But the one that has a lot of contribution to English and what we normally use nowadays as American or British English consists of Germanic, proto-language, and a bit of Greek, right? Now, why am I saying this? No, well, in English, no, you'll notice that a single word can often mean a lot of things, especially if you place it within a certain context. For example, here's a simple sentence. No, the key to the castle has been lost. Through NLU, we are giving the machine to have a capability to say that the word key here is a noun, and it refers to the object that you use to unlock doors, right? But the problem with English is that it also just doesn't mean, when you say key, it doesn't just mean something that you use to unlock doors, right? It can even be used to describe another noun, no? Based again on how it is used in the sentence. So the general played a key role in making the campaign a success. Notice here the same word key is used, but instead of it being having the definition of an object, it is now being used as an adjective, right? And let's take it one step even further. No, you cannot just use the word key here on its own, and by that meaning, you just get the root form of key. You can even add prefixes and suffixes to it, and then change its overall definition altogether. So, for instance, here the guardsman locked the door, keying it shut. So, notice the word key here is still present, but I've added a suffix to it, ing, and yes, it is still being used to describe a noun, but it takes on a different form. Right? This is just for English. In fact, no, even here in the Filipino language, we also have it in, or we also have this same characteristic, right? And in fact, no, this is, for example, the one being done here, keying. This is what's being called as conjugation, no. Here in the Filipino language, it's just a simple word, kain. Okay, means to eat, right? If you want to change the word kain, which means eat, to food, what do? You add a prefix to it, and then it becomes pagkain, right? And then you can even make it even more complex, add more conjugations to it. You can still retain its property as a noun, no? But add enough conjugations and then it becomes a completely different meaning altogether. So from kain, it becomes pagkain, and then if you change it to be pagkakainan, okay, the definition has already changed, right? So the goal of NLU is for the machine to understand these intricacies, right? Now, this is just one phase of it. You also have natural language generation. So you can say that NLU, this is more of like giving the machine the passive skills it needs to understand human language. So in us, no, in human communications, this is where reading and listening would come into play. Whereas in natural language generation, these are more of like you're giving the machine the active skills it needs to interact with human beings. So this is a subset of human language processing, which involves producing a human language text response based on some data input. Note also here of the definition, some data input, right? So it doesn't just spur out something out of thin air. It needs basis, no? Now, this task or this component rather focuses more on text planning, sentence planning, and finally, realization. So, how does this look, no, at the under the hood, no? Suppose you tell your chatbot to say, write a simple sentence. To us as human beings, it may sound simple, right? But in the underlying process of it, the underlying pipeline of it, no, what the machine model does is that through NLG, it plans its text. It also selects what language it would use. It would then also select which specific words to place. And then finally, combine all of these different words to produce a reasonable and understandable sentence. So imagine it goes through a lot, all in a matter of a few seconds, no? But it has gone through the entire process or and the entire pipeline just to produce a simple result. No? It may sound um, complex to us as human beings. Like imagine how many processes a machine has to go through just to produce a simple output. No? But it's because us as human beings we do it intuitively already. It's in fact one of the skills that we have developed while growing up. No? It's essentially like um, you teaching your child to learn a new language, but how you teach it, you use programming. Okay, so that's where NLG would be coming in. No? Now, NLP within the context of machine learning and AI in general, it still falls on the process and definitions of machine learning. So what do I mean by that? No? We can say that NLP is a use case under artificial intelligence also. No, so just a quick recap here on what AI is. So AI, this is a broad field of computer science concerned with creating intelligent machines that is able to mimic or perform human tasks. Okay, so within the subset of it, you have machine learning. Now, you can say that machine learning is sort of like a mimicry of sorts, no? You give it or the capability for machines to mimic what aspect of um the human or humanity in general, intelligence, or the computational aspect or the main how um a human being thinks. So that's how machine learning is, right? In the fields of AI, you also have robotics, wherein you can associate robotics as mimicry of the human physiology, right? Machine learning focuses more on mimicking human thinking, human behavior, no? Or human intelligence. Now, within the subset of it, no, there is an approach on how you can do machine learning by combining together the components in such a way that it has resemblance to the human brain in terms of its structure. This is where deep learning would be coming in. Why am I bringing this one up? You can, in fact, apply natural language processing or create an NLP model, no, using deep learning or even traditional AI, computational machine learning. Okay, all of these ones can still, in fact, be under the umbrella of AI. Okay? Now, because machine learning and NLP to that extent is dependent heavily on data, no? We still need to understand and we still need to acknowledge that before you can even pass data to your NLP model, you have to also go through a bit of a process in cleaning out and processing or pre-processing your data before it is fed into the actual NLP model. Right? So this is where the concepts also of another field, data science and data engineering and data analytics would come into play. Because if say for instance, a chatbot is a classic use case of an NLP example, no? So or how you can apply NLP in the real life, no? So before you can even create your chatbot, you also have to understand where will my chatbot get its data and how will it also process the data it receives. So this is where um, the practices and concepts of data science and data engineering would come into play. The point here is that in also in NLP, data science is no exception. Okay? Now, um, while discussing to you the flow on how a chatbot, for instance, or an NLP model is able to dissect a certain human statement or human sentence, it goes through a process, right? So you can say here that it goes through a pipeline. Now, what I'll be showing to you here is a general overview of what an NLP pipeline would look like. In other words, this is how a model is able to not just um, receive human text, but also to chop it down into small pieces and finally gain insight or comprehension based on these small pieces. Now, this overall pipeline can differ based on the references that you can look into, but all in all, no, you have 2, 4, 6, 7 general steps. Now, the color coding here, this is also intentional. It's because there are also some textbooks and some references that would tell you that, okay, of all of the 7 steps in an NLP pipeline, you would normally see the 5 highlighted ones here. This is because the first and the sixth is normally also combined with other steps. Okay, so I'll be going through the entire NLP pipeline. How does it overall work? So suppose you give an NLP model a simple statement. How is it able to understand that statement and finally generate text out of it? No? So first one, sentence segmentation. So this involves dividing. Suppose you give an NLP model, an input that doesn't just consist of one sentence. It consists of a paragraph, I would say. So the first step would come into play wherein it divides the sentence or the entire paragraph into smaller sentences. Okay, so you might be wondering if this sounds a bit too simple. Isn't this a bit going a bit too far wherein we're already over engineering the entire pipeline? Think of it this way. In the English language and specifically in languages that use the Latin alphabet, no, we terminate a sentence using a period, right? But this is not a universal way to terminate a sentence. Okay? There are, in fact, some languages and modern or archaic that uses other symbols and notations in order to terminate your text. No? For instance, to us, no, just we don't need to really look back. No? If you have a bit of familiarity of the Baybayin alphabet, no, how do we terminate a sentence there? We normally use 2 bars, right? Or colons, no, in some diaspora of using of baybayin, no. In some languages, for instance, in the Proto-Germanic Elder Futhark or the runes, as you would say, the ones that are normally used as the written and spoken language of the Vikings, no, they don't use period to terminate a sentence. They in fact use double bars. Okay, so this is where sentence segmentation would be coming. And another modern example here, no, in Japanese, they don't use period per se. I mean, the period that we normally use or find in your keyboard. What do they normally use? A small ring in order to terminate their sentence. And in fact, no, taking it one step further, in Japanese, no, because that's where I have a bit of familiarity with, no, you also end questions with that small circle. Okay, I would say that it's a small circle, not necessarily a period, no. This is because in Japanese, no, they don't use question marks in some texts, no. They in fact use a separate character for it, no, or a separate what you call this? A separate voice, no. It's the ka character, no. So you get my point here. So the first step in the NLP pipeline is to first segment if you have a paragraph into smaller sentences. So for English example, suppose I give it with a simple paragraph here describing London, no, what this step would just do is to chop it down into sentences. Okay, so here you have 3 sentences, so it produces that. Okay, next step, you have tokenization. So this step now involves for every sentence, chop it further down into tokens. Now, what is a word token? It also depends on the model itself, no? But in general definitions, normally a token is associated to a certain word, no? Tokenization breaks the sentence into small separate words or tokens. This further helps the model understand the overall context of the text. Whenever we are tokenizing the sentence itself, no, we don't just even consider the phrases, or we don't just associate a word to be a token. I hope I make sense, no? Because there are also some languages that use entire characters to refer to a certain token. So example here, Chinese, no? If you are familiar with Mandarin, no, you'll see that a certain character can already be a word, right? But that doesn't mean that one character can already be a single word. You can, in fact, combine several characters and still form one word, no, or one term, no? So this is where tokenization in its threshold would be coming in. Some models would have tokens as small as a single character for the Latin language. So the one example here, some of them can have a token to be a word in itself. No? So in my example here, notice also that in my the tokens that this model is able to produce is not just limited to a single word. It can even be referred to an entire term or a phrase, right? So this is where tokenization would come in. Now, we've broken down a sentence into tokens. Then what's the next step? Do we further break it down also? The answer is yes. So for each token, we further break it down into its smallest granular root form. So this is where stemming would be coming in. So the model now analyzes text based on parts of speech and essentially derive its base or root form. All words, English or otherwise, would always have a base or root word, or in linguistics, its overall stem. Okay? So for example here, no, suppose I have the word London or the token London, no, you don't break down the word London into lon and don, right? You take it as its base form or root form. Okay? This is also considering not just the word on itself, but the surrounding words of that specific token, right? This is also where labeling would be coming in, wherein a token is also assigned a certain designation in a sentence. Let's put it at that. So in my case, London here can be considered just by analyzing the words surrounding it can be a proper noun. Okay? So you'll notice here, each of the individual token is assigned with sort of like a label in a way. So London, we know this is a proper noun. The word is, or the verb is a verb, no? A determiner or determinant is the, and so on and so forth. Okay? So stemming also involves removing or breaking down a sentence if it has prefixes or suffixes, right? So, for example, the word eat or eating. So, in your sentence, if you have the word eating, its stem form would be eat, right? So, you remove the suffix. Now, it doesn't stop there, even more, no? So we further break down those stems into its overall canonical form or its lemma. Lemmatization, this is also another step of further breaking down. So the one that I have described to you a while ago, wherein you remove any prefixes or suffixes from a word, is lemmatization. It is similar to stemming, no? But you consider the lemma to be the canonical form of a given word. There is a difference between a root form and a canonical form. Eating can be considered as the root form, but eat is its lemma of the word eat, obviously. Okay? So for example, in my example also a while ago, no, say I have London, I do not remove the prefix lon and just retain don. We treat the entire word as is, London, right? So we can say that the word London, this is its lemma form can also be London. Another example here, no? Suppose I have capital. Now, this is also where the definition or the dictionary definition of a certain word would come into play. Suppose I have capital. Okay? Through lemmatization, we are able to understand that the capital word here, no, is not being used to define as something that is an adjective, right? So just by using my example a while ago on that given sentence, no? Because remember, some words can have multiple meanings and multiple roles in the sentence, no? So in the word capital here, we're not using capital here to describe another word, no? So we dismiss it altogether. But we are referring to capital as sort of like a noun, right? But this goes even further. It's not enough that we have to know that the word capital is also a noun. We also have to understand the context of that word. So because the word capital can refer to, in business terminologies, something that is asset or money, or something that is of political, meaning it is a metropolis or municipality, just by looking at the example that we have a while ago, we're actually looking for the latter definition of capital. So the final canonical or lemma form of capital is also capital, but within the context of political division. So meaning capital as a definition of metropolis or municipality. Okay? So it goes through a lot, of breaking a sentence down into smaller pieces. So this is how a general pipeline would be coming in. So after lemmatization, the next step is now we have to filter out any unnecessary commonly used words in that given sentence. This is where stop word analysis would be coming in. So this is the process of identifying and removing any commonly used words. So, for instance, the words so, the, a, and are removed from the entire sentence and they get filtered out in order to just get the overall essence of your sentence. Okay? So, in my case here, in stop word analysis, we don't necessarily drop the words, but we give them the least importance, in that given sentence. So you're essentially, aside from giving each word a certain label, you're also giving it a overall priority based on the context that you want to derive from said sentence. Okay, so this is where stop word analysis would come in. So we've broken down the sentence into its smallest parts. We've also filtered out some of the words that we do not need. Next step is that we also rank the importance of each of those words based on how they are used in the sentence. Finally, the last two parts would involve stitching them up all together in order to see how each of those words interact with each other. So, or in other words, how they are being used in the entire bigger picture. So this is where dependency parsing in the last part of speech would be coming in. So dependency parsing, this is mainly used to find out how all of the words in a sentence are related to each other. So in a way, you are trying to look for how the word capital is related to the word the and how it is also related to the word is. No? And the last step, part of speech, this is where also the process of identifying its voice, its tense, would be coming into play. No? So notice that after several steps, the last step finally involves giving the overall tone or the tense of the complete sentence. Well, this is just for a sentence, but it can in fact refer to the entire paragraph. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of steps, and to my engineering folks here, if you are familiar with your mathematics, you'll notice that the process is somewhat similar to your calculus, wherein you would differentiate something, spread it out, and then finally integrate it back again using integration, or integral calculus, So just an example here, Sorry, I'm a nerd. So you'll see some similarities here also in your NLP pipeline. Okay? Now, with that being said, the NLP pipeline is used in several use cases. And the one that is most prominent nowadays is it is mainly used by what we would call GPTs. So what are GPTs? Um, this is in fact a term first coined by Google. Okay, it you would think that ChatGPT was also the one who quote unquote developed the entire process, no? But it's in fact Google who wrote the first scientific paper describing what a generative pre-trained transformer is. So what is it first? This is in a prominent framework normally used in generative AI, specifically under the term or the under the topic of large language models. Think of GPTs as an application of NLP to artificial intelligence. But in terms of its structure, we don't just create a function and call it a day. A GPT is more complex than that. In fact, we use artificial neural networks or deep learning to create the model itself. Okay? So there are available GPTs and large language models that are available nowadays, and depending who you are talking to, no, they would have their corresponding chatbots as its front end. No? So for instance, the most popular nowadays is we have ChatGPT. The underlying model of it is the GPT 3.5 or the most modern, the most recent one, it's GPT-4. GPT is a model or a framework that you can consider it. No? But the product itself that enables the framework, you have what's called large language models. Okay? And depending on the company who developed it, no, they would have their corresponding offerings. So you have OpenAI, you have their GPT-4, Google would have Palm, and then its front end. Well, not back then it was still called Google Bard, but nowadays they have rebranded to Google Gemini. Okay. Some other companies, you have Anthropic, they have Claude as their large language model, their chatbot to also be Claude. No, Meta, aka Facebook, they have the Llama 2. Okay, their front end nowadays is already here. No, based on this source, they don't have yet a front end, but if you have been keeping up to pace with tech news, no, they have already offered their Meta AI as their front end. No, so underneath Meta AI, you have Llama. You also have Ollama, in fact, the small scale version of Llama. Okay. So in terms of its overall characteristics, what is a GPT? It is a neural network architecture, or rather an implementation of it. Now, is it possible for you to create your own GPT? Theoretically, yes, but you don't necessarily have to do it on your own. There are, in fact, some available tools that you can already utilize and some pre-trained versions of the models that you can just download and use on whatever use case that you have. Okay? It has in fact, its overall general characteristic, it's generation, no, or generative capability. As the name suggests, a GPT excels at generative AI. So the pre-training that it has gone through equips it with the capability to predict text or to the next word in that given sentence. So it's you don't necessarily have to create a GPT on your own. No, you just need to just call it on whichever platform that you have, especially if you are into programming and development. You can just call or create an instance of it locally. Okay, so I've discussed a lot on what natural language processing as a science, no, is able to offer. What are its capabilities, no? But of course, like all other technologies, it imposes some challenges. So I'll cite here some four based on this source. No? So first off, ambiguity and vagueness. No? The problem with human language in general, not just in English, is that you can have you can always have that level of ambiguity and vagueness, especially in a sentence. Suppose you open a window for ChatGPT and you just cite there, generate this for me without additional context. So this is already an example of a vague statement. Definitely, the chatbot would tell you, what does this refer to? So this is where the question of what do you really mean that you want your AI chatbot to generate. Okay, next one, language transition. No, um, this applies more on translating a language or a sentence from one language to the next, right? And this can also refer to not just one language to another, so for example, from Filipino to English, but it can also be involved within that language itself, but depending also on the accent, okay, or even on the tone on or even on the used words. No, the problem with the models that we have nowadays is that they're not yet that advanced to gain full understanding if you do not give it with the proper context, right? So nowadays, so let's take English again for an example here. No, suppose you have your GPT, or you ask your your chatbot to say what is goat. So definitely the first thing that it would say is that it is a four-legged domesticated animal. But this doesn't mean that, notice how I've written goat here. I've written it to be in capital letters. So I have to re-clarify again to my chatbot. No, as in not goat, the animal, but the acronym GOAT. So for you Gen Zers out there, you would say that this is greatest of all time, right? So it gives the chatbot a limitation on what it can respond based on just this simple context. And take note for this example, no? We're already working with English here. So, but the definition that you want to is not the one that it has produced. Okay? Then finally, like all languages, no, it also has a challenge on figures of speech, specifically sarcasm, irony, and idiomatic expressions. No, suppose you give out a statement wherein you say she's cold with her words today. No, of course, the chatbot would immediately say to you that maybe check her temperature. So the chatbot really took it literally and said that, or understood that the speaker is saying that she is literally cold. But what you're actually referring to is that cold as in distant, aloof, okay, indifferent. So immediately you can say a statement here that's not what I really mean. Okay, and then you take it one step further. You respond to your chatbot with emojis. No, it would definitely take it to literally and say that, ask you even that, do you even have a headache? So notice here the complexity, no, of that of just this simple conversation. No, so really, no, NLPs in general, they are really not a one size fits all or the magic bullet of artificial intelligence. Okay, it still has its own sets of limitations. Okay, so I'm down to my last slide here. No, having said that, no, where can we now see the use case of NLP specifically to telecommunications and to us, no, Open RAN in general? Now, you'll notice that the nature of natural language processing, or the certain field related to it, is more of like human text or human communication in general. So we can say that because telecommunications is also a vast field on its own, we can have several applications for it as well. No? So mainly it involves use cases associated to human interaction. So we can say that NLP can be applied into the use cases of chatbots. Okay, we can even use it in OSS, or Operation Subsystems and Support, wherein you can create an application that just receives questions from engineers, no, based on the overall state of the network, and then the NLP model is able to produce a paragraph or a report based on the data or analytics it's gotten from the network. And finally, this one has already been highlighted also, the application of NLP to cybersecurity. So it can also be used as tool for understanding communication patterns. You know? So take here the likes of text spamming, text filtering, or even prevent phishing. Okay, so what did we learn today? No, we tackled a lot of topics, no, but you'll see that despite the simplicity of NLP, it also has its own complexities. No, we discussed what is NLP as a definition, so we now understand that hopefully, no, we see it not just as a subfield standing on its own, but rather um, a merging of computer science with linguistics. We also discussed some use cases associated to NLP, mainly also its components, which is understanding, natural language understanding, and natural language generation. We also discussed several the different steps on how the NLP pipeline would go through. And finally, briefly discussed what are large language models and GPTs, no? And what are the imposing challenges being experienced by NLP. And finally, how can we apply it to our specific use case in telecommunications?